Tonight, remembering a legend. The Scottish footballing icon Billy McNeill dies at the age of 79.
After losing his battle with dementia, tributes are paid to the Lisbon Lion who lifted the European Cup in 1967.
He wasn't one of these that come out and had stories to tell or said anything that would have made headlines. He let his football do that.
Also making the headlines, the First Minister is set to lay out her plans for a second Scottish independence referendum.
And on the Bonnie Banks, revealing the designs for a new tourist attraction on Loch Lomond.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. Billy McNeill, a legend in Scottish football and an icon of Celtic Football Club, has died at the age of 79. He had been battling dementia for a number of years. Today, his family paid tribute to his strength and fortitude.
Celtic said McNeill embodied the best traditions of the club. Sir Alex Ferguson paid a personal tribute, saying he was a giant of the game and a truly good man. Well, live now to Celtic Park and our special correspondent Bernard Ponsonby.
A few years ago, when the statue to Billy McNeill was unveiled here at Celtic Park, he talked about being deeply humbled that the club and its supporters recognised him in this way, but also humbled because this was a football club that was in his blood. This was a football club that he loved. Billy McNeill would also be humbled today, not only by the number of tributes that have been paid to them, but by the palpable respect in the way in which those tributes have been made. Our first report tonight comes from our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
The statue of Billy McNeill at Celtic Park celebrates something no British player had done before and few have done since. Captaining his team to the European Cup in 1967 ensured his place in history. Today this has become a focal point for tributes, including from fellow Lisbon Lions Bertie Auld and John Clark.
He wasn't one of these that come out and had stories to tell or said anything that would have made headlines. He let his football do that. And he was always first up for training and on the training ground and everything. Everybody looked up to him.
In a city divided by football, he was a close friend of John Greig, his Rangers counterpart. He said today, Billy's not been well, but it's still a shock. When you think of Billy McNeill, you think of that towering 6-foot-plus figure who captained Celtic to their greatest ever triumph. His death was confirmed in a statement from his family this morning. They said he suffered from dementia for a number of years and fought bravely to the end, showing the strength and fortitude he always has done throughout his life. It's almost 30 years since Billy McNeill last managed Celtic, more than 40 since he last played for them, and more than 50 since the greatest moment in their history. But the tributes here today illustrate that for the fans, whether they remember him or are too young to have ever seen him play, he meant more to them than probably anyone else.
Anybody that plays for Celtic deserves fame and fortune, but Billy was an extra special in all that he achieved.
It was only 1 year out of 9 that we didn't make the quarterfinals of the European Cup in the late 60s and early 70s. Celtic were truly a massive force in European football, and he was the man leading the team.
McNeill made more than 800 appearances for Celtic as a player. He went on to manage Clyde, then Aberdeen.
He always commanded respect. He was such a large figure in football. You know, he was a really nice guy. It was him and Ally MacLeod that brought up all the young boys for Fergie to take over and go and win his championship and stuff like that.
As Celtic boss over 2 spells, he took 4 league titles. He was later a club ambassador, but his advancing dementia meant he was latterly seen rarely in public. This in 2017, the 50th anniversary of the Lisbon Lions' success. The word legend is overused in sport, but today there can be no more appropriate description of Billy McNeill. Gordon Cree, STV News, Glasgow.
Well, Billy McNeill was voted by the supporters as Celtic's greatest ever captain. The millions who follow this football club throughout the world regard him as the very embodiment of what Celtic is all about. And for a lot of the younger fans who have been coming here today, they will never have seen this man play. But there is an almost timeless quality about this iconic figure that they too can relate to Billy McNeill. I've been looking back on his life, his career and his legacy.
It is the most iconic picture in the history of Scottish club football, when 27-year-old Billy McNeill held aloft the European Cup in the Estadio Nacional. This tribune figure, elevated high in the Lisbon sky, was a metaphor for the heights scaled by this country's greatest ever side.
Celtic became the first ever British team to win the European Cup.
I don't think there was ever any other result than the one that was achieved. In fact, I think, to be honest with you, Inter Milan got off very lightly that day.
Billy McNeill was born in Bellshill in 1940 of part Irish, part Lithuanian stock. He grew up and lived among those who would later idolise him, a background that would mould his view of the world and forever ground him in the experiences of the ordinary supporter. He was one of them. Celtic's win in the 1965 Scottish Cup final lit the fuse for an explosion that would propel McNeill, Steen and Celtic towards unparalleled success.
Gallagher.
As a player, he was strong, determined, commanding in the air, but his greatest asset was his ability to inspire those around him. The Roll of Honour, 9 Scottish League Championships, 7 Scottish Cups, 6 Scottish League Cups and 1 European Cup.
Billy McNeill, the giant-sized centre half of Celtic, normally comes up to get his head near it, and he's done it! He's done just that!
Like McNeill, Celtic towered over the opposition. The history books got fatter as they were rewritten in green ink.
McNeill going in. McNeill has scored. Billy McNeill has scored.
In 1975, after a cup final win against Airdrie, he stunned the support by announcing his retirement.
A moment to cherish, a moment of genuine triumph for the Celtic Cup.
3 years later, he was back as manager. The board's shoddy treatment of Jock Steen proved Billy McNeill's opportunity. In a 5-year spell as manager, he landed 3 league championships, 1 Scottish Cup and 1 League Cup. McNeill quit Celtic in 1983, frustrated by the board. After managing Manchester City and Aston Villa, he returned to Celtic Park in 1987 for a second spell.
4 years ago I left obviously, but whatever differences I had between myself and the board have certainly been reconciled.
By his standards, it was not successful, although a league and cup double were delivered in the centenary season.
One this time, and Mundy. McAvenny.
I don't think I'll be here in another 100 years' time, but I think that these lads will be remembered. I'm delighted for them.
He was effectively sacked in 1991, the Celtic board once again coming in for criticism of how they had treated a man so admired on the terraces.
I played 18 years at Celtic. I was captain for 12 years. We won the European Cup. You know, you build up a relationship with the fans in that case, and it really does help, make no mistake about that.
After football, he was a sought-after pundit and enjoyed spells with broadcasters and newspapers. Always articulate, he carried himself with an almost presidential air that would lead him being named club ambassador for Celtic. McNeill was now reconciled with this affair of the heart. He had come home. Still holding the big cup high after all of these years, a permanent reminder of Celtic's finest hour. When that hour came, it fell to arguably Celtic's finest son to do the honours. For the Celtic family, he is the stuff of which immortality is made.
Just to pick up on a point that was made by Gordon at the end of his report, on days like today, sometimes there's a sense in which hyperbole can grip journalists and the word legend is overused and sometimes misused. Not today. Not today. He genuinely was one. We'll have more on this story in the sports section, but for the moment, live from Celtic Park, back to the studio.
All right, Bernard, thank you.